Good evening. It is Friday, October 15th, 2021. This evening, I'd like to take a look at Psalm 116, verses 1 to 14, and I'll be reading from the New Living Translation, second edition. I love the Lord because he hears my voice and my prayer for mercy. Because he bends down to listen, I will pray as long as I have breath. Death wrapped its ropes around me. The terrors of the grave overtook me. I saw only trouble and sorrow. Then I called upon the name of the Lord. Please, Lord, save me. How kind the Lord is, how good he is. So merciful, this God of ours. The Lord protects those of childlike faith. I was facing death, and he saved me. Let my soul be at rest again, for the Lord has been good to me. He has saved me from death, my eyes from tears, my feet from stumbling. And so I walk in the Lord's presence as I live here on earth. I believed in you, so I said, I am deeply troubled, Lord. In my anxiety, I cried out to you. These people are all liars. What can I offer the Lord for all he has done for me? I will lift up the cup of salvation and praise the Lord's name for saving me. I will keep my promises to the Lord in the presence of all his people. This anonymous psalm describes the hope that the psalmist has in God. He loves God because God hears him. That is a tremendous statement of faith, that God is hearing us. Our world is increasingly full of people and institutions that cannot hear, not because they lack the capacity. They're just letting us know they don't think we are important enough to be heard. God is different. God does hear. The psalmist describes God as bending down to listen. That's what an adult does to listen to a child, to let the child know that they are important, that their words have meaning and significance, and that they are valuable. God hears us, so the psalmist prays continually as long as he has breath. We show our faith in the hearing power of God by our time taken to speak to him. James says that our faith is both belief and action. Our belief in God's hearing is shown by our action of taking the time to speak to him. The psalmist describes God having saved him from death, from tears and stumbling. Our own clumsiness causes most of our stumbles, and God can help us not stumble. Our own emotions cause us tears, and God dries our eyes. Our own mortality rises up to remind us of the fragility of life, and God rescues us. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy, and God saves us from ourselves. Often there are enemies outside of our lives, movements that want to impoverish and attack us. God saves us from those. Often there are people in our midst that have a harmful agenda, that wish us disappointment, failure, and pain. And God saves us from their power. Whatever is causing us harm, God will rescue those who trust him with a childlike faith. The psalmist ends this passage by committing to two things. He commits to sharing the story of God's salvation and praising God for his salvation in every situation. And he commits to keeping his promises to God before all of God's people. The psalmist's daily prayers have become a testimony of God's saving grace and supernatural power to rescue him from the messes he has thrust upon himself or the messes thrust upon him from outside. He commits to sharing these stories of salvation with everyone he can. What stories of God's actions do you have in your life? Who can you share them with? Will you take time this week to get your thoughts together about God's rescuing of you and share your stories with others, how God has moved mightily in your life? May God bless you as you remember and share.